Okay, so we've been going through introduction to programming, and we are calling it introduction, but actually this covers the basic foundation of all programming languages. I shouldn't call it basic, but it talks about other concepts that cut across all programming languages. Like if you pick any computer code, this is what the code is. This is the things that you're going to see in the code. If you understand these foundations, then any computer code that you pick up, it will be easy for you to read the code and understand it. And it would be very easy for you to make changes to the code also. So these concepts are very, very important and crucial. And after you get a firm understanding of these concepts, again, you are almost like a pro because you have the confidence to understand any computer code that you see. You can make changes to it. And not only that, you can also write your own computer code. You will be able to solve problems using computer code. So this is a very, very important thing that we are doing. So we've gone through all of this, and today we are at this place, conditionals. So we already know what these are, but we are kind of trying to look at examples of code in conditionals. So although these concepts, they cut across all languages, but we are using JavaScript as the language of choice to demonstrate some of these concepts, give examples, and try to understand how to use them, how to implement these concepts. So let's go to the conditionals, since that is where we are. After we finish with this, we are going to jump to JavaScript itself at the bottom here. So floating point. Okay. So conditionals. What is the use of conditionals in code? It's a question to the floor, please. What do we use conditionals for? Like in programming, when we talk about conditionals, what are we talking about? And what is the use of conditionals? We made
The use of
it yesterday. Sorry?
okay, I just want to say something about it.
Sure.
It's like giving an alternative.
Given an alternative, right?
Yes. Like if you example, if you ask the system to determine okay, hold on. Let me try to think what can be if situation is like if and sorry, true or false. So yeah, so condition like that. Example, let's use a loan, for example. Does the customer meet up the criteria for the loan? Yes. Execute this. If no, break.
Okay. Very powerful
Something like that.
example. Very, very powerful example. So anytime you have alternatives, anytime you have to make a decision based on something, you don't know what to do. Whatever you're going to do next in the code depends on something being true or false. So the key thing is true or false. And that's something that something can be different depending on the problem that you are solving. So like in the case of the banking example, does this person meet the criteria for a loan? So to meet the criteria for a loan, maybe we check a lot of things, your credit score, your income, the household income, a lot of things. And then we say, yes, this person meets the criteria. And then now the next line of code, you're gonna check. If the person meets the criteria, then you do something. Maybe, oh, let's grant the loan to him, and all of that. And if no, maybe you're gonna tell him that, oh, You gotta give him a nice message that, hey, you don't qualify for the loan at this time, so come back in the future, blah, blah, blah. But the point is that you need to make a decision in the code in order to know what to do next, right? So anytime you're solving a problem and you find yourself in a situation where you have to make a decision, think about conditionals, okay? And our life is very easy because under conditionals, we only have two statements, the if statement and then the switch statement. So if and switch. You will not forget these things, if and switch. And then if you're looking at a code also that is pre-written and you see them having switch statement over there, you can see the switch statement is a big statement. So almost like a template also. You see switch, you don't have to be scared. You need to understand what is going on. With a switch statement, what should I look for in a switch statement, right? So let's look at the if statement first. So this is the syntax of an if statement. All if statements, all of them, they look like this. And if you look at this carefully, what do you see? There is a condition over here, right? And then there is a code that you want to execute. So you are saying that if this condition is true or false, so here, the code over here will execute if this condition is true. So if this condition is not true, you have to jump this code, jump it, don't touch it, and then continue with the rest of the code, right? So again, this condition here has to evaluate true or false. That is the key point here, okay? So there is this, so here you can say, if this condition is true, then you execute this. What if it is not true? If it is not true, and you want to say something to the user, then you can use the else. So if else. So else, in other words, if it is not true, then I want to do what is in the else block. So, okay, so let's say you give a condition here. You give the first condition, it is not true. So you don't do this. What if you have another condition that you want to check? You don't want to just go to the else. You want to check another condition. So you can have another condition here too. So all you do is that say else if. Then you check the condition number 2. If condition number 2 is true, then you print this. If condition number 2 is not true, then you go to the else. So the else here is like a catch all. If these two conditions are not true, then everybody else will get this one, the else. You guys, so I have a question. So if this condition is true and this condition is true, do you think the code will execute this line of code or not? So the question is tricky. Let me come again. So we have two conditions over here, right? If this condition is true, okay, so if this condition is not true, it's going to skip this, right? And then it's going to check this condition. So if this condition is true, then it will print this, right? So now my question is, let's say that this condition is true, and this is also true. Do you think the code will execute this line of code here or not?
To execute the first one.
It will execute the first one only.
First one, yes.
Only. It will not.
Only. It won't go to the second one.
Okay, that is true. And I wish I could ask you why you think that is true, but is it a trivial question or no?
Well, it's, when you said if.
If, yeah.
So if it is true at the first condition, then there's no need going to the second condition.
There you go. There you go. Perfect. Okay. So you only come to the second condition if this is false.
If this is false, yeah.
Definitely. Perfect. Perfect. And guys, even you can see code written for Google. It's not like there is another way of doing this, or there is no other way. This is the best way we have right now. So anytime you need to make conditions, then you need to think of the if statement. And then depending on the number of these conditions you have, your if statement can become very big, but that's how you solve problems, different problems, right? So, okay. So we're going to have examples at the bottom, but let's look at the switch statement also. So the switch and the if statement, like I said, they are very similar, but there is a little difference. So the switch, there is a variable over here. So this variable can have different values, right? So you are checking the values that is in the variable. If the value in this variable is value 1, then you are saying that execute this code. If the value here is value 2, then you are saying execute this line of code. So you can see one advantage of the switch statement. If the value is value 2, it's going to jump straight to this place and execute this. It will not go through here first and then come here. Like the if statement. See, if statement has to go here first. If that's not true, then it will check this. If that's not true, then it will check the next. But the switch gives you the ability to jump to the place where you are supposed to go right away, based on what the value is. And I think that switch statements are more readable. It's easy to read this one than the if. So, but it's a matter of preference. You can choose either way, and you're good. So the other thing I want you to pay attention to with a switch statement, you see, if the case is value 1, you execute this code, you also have to put a break over there. If you don't put a break over there, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to check, it's going to flow to the next condition. So you always need to put a break over here. And what does the break do? So break allows you to exit from this whole thing. So come out of it and continue, okay? Yeah, we're gonna see examples. So the ternary operator, you should try to remember this name, ternary operator, because it's used a lot in industry also. So this is a very smart way to have an if-else statement. Very, very smart way. And senior developers, they would mostly write code this way, right? So this is an if-else statement here. So it's a very smart way. You can on one line of just a line, the same line. So you just put a condition here and then put a question mark. So all that you're saying is that if this is true, that's what you're saying, then whatever you need to do, you put it here. Else, so this column here is else, and then whatever you want to do. So again, syntax is just the way you write code, right? So you just have to know the syntax and then try to follow the syntax, right? If you look at the regular English language, it has a grammatical rules that must be followed. So if you want to use past tense, you just have to know the grammar and then follow the grammar. That's all. So this is a very nice place to put that. So we have these examples. You can see that you don't have a lot to remember here, right? You see, you just have to remember the if statement. Everything here is just the else part of things, then the switch. But this is very crucial in every programming language. You will see it everywhere. Like it's always a bunch of if statements, right? But you're always checking something and you do things if this is true or not. So yeah. So now let's just play with some of the examples over here. Let's just play with them. We just created this file over here for our work. So let's just get some boilerplate. We can just put some H1 here, even though we don't need it. Can just say JavaScript. JavaScript is fine. Just that, and then I just want us to write our JavaScript here. So we just copy this code. We could have written it ourselves also. It doesn't matter. Because in the industry, like I said, there are many code that has already been written. Your job is to understand what it is doing so that you can change it. If you don't understand it, you cannot change it. So being able to read code and understand it it's more than 80% of the work. Okay. So this code here, what is it doing? Can somebody try to interpret this code for me? Very simple code. Okay, well, before you do it, you can see the if statement. Look at the syntax of the if statement, right? If, then you put your condition over here. Then you do this, right? So if you look at the code that we are looking at, it's checking the condition over here. So we already have age, and it's checking if age is greater than or equal to 18. Mm. If that is true, then it will do this. Yeah, if not, it would not do anything. It will just skip, right?
Yeah.
So can somebody attempt to explain it exactly what I said? Just try to repeat. You can even repeat what I said. It's okay.
Okay. So we set we initialize the age to the limit should be okay. We inputted 20, but in our condition we said age, if age is if age is greater than 18, then computer will going to print you are an adult. But if you are less, this one is not stated, but if you are less, probably it won't print anything.
Is it probably?
It won't print anything that you are.
It will not print.
It's only when you are above 18, that's when it's going to print you are an adult.
Perfect. And
but if it is not, it won't print anything because we didn't state it there.
Perfect. Perfect. So is it only when you are above 18?
No, 18 and above, sorry.
18
and equal sign.
I'm sorry?
18 and above because the equal sign.
Because of the equal sign, yes. Greater than or equal to.
Equals 18. To, yeah.
Yes. So if you could have said, if you just wanted to use the greater than only, what do you think this should be? Greater than what? 17.
17.
That means you are 18 and above.
So if I input 17.1.
So normally age, you can't really have 17.1 years old. I thought you could, but you can't.
I'm just saying, 17.9999 is less than 18.
Definitely.
So that's what I'm trying to say. I think equals to is the better thing.
It's right. It's a very good way that you are thinking, because now if we just say greater than 17, then somebody who, if this age comes in as 17.7, as he said, then it was still going to print you are an adult.
You're an adult, yeah.
Even though you are not really an adult yet. So you can see the coding, you are really solving a problem, right? You're really solving a problem. It may look very simple, but you are solving a big problem. And what we just said could be an industry problem that you are solving. That, you read this data from the database, you check the person's age, and if the person is an adult, you want to do certain things for them. If they are not an adult, like YouTube, they don't show all videos to everybody. So if you register, they check your age, and that's how they decide what content to show you, right? So coding is really real life problems. And most everything we are doing in our lives, you can write in code, and you can do it very easily too, right? So now, exactly what we said, if we execute this code, okay, so what do you think we're gonna get? Okay. So if I check the console, what do you think is gonna be there right now? So 20 is greater than 18, right? Greater than or equal to 18. So this condition will become true, right? So it will print this. So if we if we inspect the page, we should see, then you go to the console, we should see you are an adult over there. So let's make this less than 18, say 17, save, and then nothing happens. It's not printing anything. So that's why sometimes it's good to use the else so that at least you know something happened. So else means if this is not true, then print something. Print something else and say, you are too young. Whatever that makes sense, right? You're too young. You're too young. So if you print, if you reverse, you can now see the else, because this failed, it's now printing this. Okay. We're going to be solving very complicated problems using these things, and you would appreciate the power of this. So what are other examples I gave here? So this one, temperature. So temperature equals 25, and I'm checking if temperature is greater than 30, you say it is hot outside, else it is not too hot. See, you all understand this code, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now let's check the grade. Let's check the grade. So I'm just gonna replace this with so this one here, we have a variable called grade, and we are putting the number 85 in there. So we are checking if grade is greater than or equal to 90, and we are printing A. Like in many schools, if you score your grade is more than 90, then it's an A, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's this, so look at how they are doing it. If it's not greater than 90, then we check the second condition. If it's greater than 80, then it's what B. So here, what this means is that, sorry, if you come here, what it means is that your grade is less than 90, but greater than or equal to 80. Because if it wasn't less than 90, this condition would have become true. Then you would have this only. So you just keep going. If this is not true, then you check. If it's greater than 70, then it's C. Anything else, you are just printing fail. So, Justina, does this make sense?
Yes, this is else if statement.
Right? This one is else if statement, yes. So yeah, else if. When you have a lot of ifs, different. How many conditions are here? 1, 2, 3. We have different conditions, and then the final one. Okay, so if we print, I should have asked the answer first, but let me now change this to say 75. What do you think I will get as an answer here? If I execute this code, what will I get here? What is it going to print?
The one who I belong to. The one who must.
Else if
I think
it's 75, and if the grade is greater than and is greater than 70 or equal to 70.
So it's gonna print C, right?
And so
Okay, perfect. Yep. So now it's printing C. Thank you. That's right. So now if this is say 55, what is it going to print? Sorry?
F.
F, yes, perfect. Because none of these conditions is true, so to go to the last one. Okay, thank you. Now let's look at.
Wait, but the last one didn't have anything there.
So that I can
this last one, right?
Yeah.
So you see, this one is the default. We call this one the default block. If all these conditions fail, then this is going to print.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So in the simple if else, this is gonna be like this. If this is true, that else, anything else other than 90 or more, you have to print this. You see? So that's the syntax. That's the syntax, yeah. Okay.
So you just create it with nothing inside.
Yeah, you can keep adding as many ifs as you need. as many ifs as you need. And then once you run out of the conditions, then if the person doesn't fit in any of those conditions, then you can now give them a nice message that, hey, you don't qualify or you failed or something, whatever you're doing. That depends on the problem that you are solving. You understand?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Nice. So let's look at a switch statement. How many examples? I have one example of switch statement here. I'll just I'll replace that. I mean, you can see the code is on the side, so you can practice from there too. So the switch statement, can somebody explain what this code is doing? You see, yeah, can somebody attempt to explain it? The beauty is that once you understand these things, whenever you have a problem, you just sit there, close your eyes a little bit, and then you can easily represent the problem in say, a switch statement or an if statement, and then you solved it. That's it.
So the variable is Monday. So if it is Monday.
I'm sorry, Tina. Somebody's playing something.
Oh.
Is that okay? I don't need to know who that is, but now I think we are good. This yeah. Hello, Tina.
Okay. All right. So so the variable is Monday. So if it's Monday, then the console print is the start of the week. But if it's Friday, it will print is the end of the week. And if it's none of those days, then it will print is a regular day.
It's regular day. Perfect. So that's exactly what it is. And this problem, they can tell you that write a code that will check the day of the week and then print whether it is Monday. Check if it's Monday, it should print this. Or let me say it again. If the problem that this code is solving could be this way, write a code that will check the day of the week. It will check it. So then it will get whatever day of the week it is. Then if the day of the week is Monday, your code should print that it is the start of the week. And if the day of the week is Friday, your code should print that it is the end of the week. And if the day of the week is any other day, then your code should print it's a regular day. So the way I put it, it's a problem that they can ask you to solve, but you can easily solve it by just using one switch statement. You see? So like, how do you check the day of the week? You need a very complicated, it's easy to check it because in code, there is the mechanism for you to check what day it is, what time, what country, all of that. But another way you can check it, you can just ask for it. You can just use the prompt statement and ask the user, what day of the week is it? You can ask so that the user will tell you, and then based on what the user tells you, this code will fire, right? So let's try this one. If I execute, there's a prompt.
That's not days.
What? Thank you. What day of the week is it today? I can just add today too, so that okay. So the user, I can refresh this. So sometimes when you're writing code, some things you put in the code, it will be shown right to the user. So normally we tell the business team to give us something that is more descriptive and short also, right? So why did my question not come? I expected to see my question up here. There may be a bug with this browser that I'm using. If I'm using Chrome, the question would be up there. Let me just refresh. See, look at what's happening. See, if I don't enter anything and I click OK, look at what it is printing. It's a regular day because it's gonna come as an empty string, and then it doesn't fall in any of these categories. So we can refresh again. Let me enter Monday. And then if I hit OK or enter, see, it is the start of the week, right? So you can really play with code, write games and everything. As we keep going, we'll write some code. You see what is happening? So that's the switch statement. Okay, I think we can go back and continue. So the ternary operation, let me show the ternary so that you see that it's not scary. And get familiar with it because you see it in the code a lot. Let me remove this. I don't really have to remove it, but I just want to remove it. So ternary operation. Okay, I'm thinking about something, so let me just leave this there. I'm gonna make this example a little complicated so that you see. Oh my God, sorry guys. Okay, so look at this line of code here. There is this variable called what? It's Monday. Remember, you can name your variable anything, but the names of your variable, they have to make sense. The names of the variable should make sense because you have to maintain the code in the future, right? If you come back and you see it's Monday, you know that this variable is storing what day it is or something like that. When you look at the name of the variable, it should tell you what data it stores. Even if the name is going to be very long, it's okay. That is the perfect practice in the industry. So this little code here is Monday is what? True. If it's Monday and we say true, what does it mean here? It means that today is Monday, right? So now your greetings is going to be, you are checking if it's Monday. If it's Monday, oh, sorry, morning. Hey. So it's morning. You are checking if it's morning, not Monday. So it's morning is true. Here we are saying it's true. We could have changed it to false also. So it's true. So now your code is checking. It's morning is true, then print. Then greetings should be, the value for greetings should be good morning. If not, if this is else, it should be hello. So once you finish, you are now printing whatever value that is in the greetings variable. Do you guys understand this one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you. The reason I left this one here, we can even ask a question so that they tell us whether it is morning or not. So that whatever when they enter true or false, you store it here and then your code will still work. So you can practice that, right? It's not everything I believe it's not everything we can demonstrate, but when you are at home, just feel free to change things and see them work. So what is this code going to print?
Good morning.
It's going to print good morning. That is true. If I make this
False.
false, then what is it going to print?
Hello.
Hello. That's right. Perfecto. Okay. So if we execute, it's printing hello now. Okay. Thank you, guys. You're great students, man. And after you understand these things, believe me, when we get to the JavaScript, you've seen it all, man. It will be very easy. It's going to be a walk in the park because it's the same principles that are there. So now let's look at loops. Okay. So we know what loops are. We talked about it in the past. So the loop, what it does is that it allows you to execute a certain code repeatedly until a certain condition is as long as a certain condition is true, right? Look at the if statement. If the condition is true, you execute the code one time. But the loop, if the condition is true, the loop will execute the code indefinitely. As long as the condition is true, you keep executing the block of code. That is the difference. So if statement, you check the condition and then you execute the block of code one time. But loop, you check the condition. If it is true, as long as the condition is true, you have to keep executing the block of code. Because sometimes you have to repeat, you are repeating certain things. So the loop is the power behind automating repetitive tasks, right? So when you're writing code and you need to do something repeatedly, then you think of a loop. You think of a loop. So there are different types of loops in JavaScript and in many programming languages. So the while loop, pretty much in all programming languages, they have the while loop. They also have the for loop, the for in loop. Not all languages would have the for in. Not all languages will have the for off loop, and then do while. So actually we have 5 of them here. And this is pretty much all the loops out there. Like in C#, I think there are only a few loops. The for loop, for each, and then maybe the while. And I think they also have the do while also in loops. So let's look at the syntax of a loop. So look at this one here. The while loop, the way it works is that you have the condition. Again, as long as the condition is true, you have to keep executing what is in here, right? You have to keep repeating what is in here. So you can see the while loop is very similar to the if statement. So if this is if, then you check the condition, and then you do this one time. But for while loop, you have to keep doing it. So one tricky thing about the while loop is that, look, you can see that with the variable that you're considering. So you have to, at the end of the code block, you always have to increase that value, that variable. See the variable here, you have to do something to the variable. Otherwise this code will continue indefinitely. It's going to become an infinite loop. So infinite loop, what is an infinite loop? Or indefinite loop? What is it?
It keeps printing, right? It doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop. It doesn't terminate. It will keep printing forever, right? But the idea is that you want to keep doing one thing forever. Repeatedly, you want to keep repeating what is here. But this condition has to terminate at some point. If it doesn't terminate, it will keep doing it forever. And what happens if the loop keeps going forever?
Something happens to the computer, right?
Yes.
Storage.
Sorry?
Store a lot of things on the system.
Yes. Because when you're running the code, you're using the RAM. The memory is the RAM. So the RAM is going to get full. Because the code will keep going, and so the RAM will get full and give up. And so your code is going to collapse. So in software, that is something you don't want at all. The software will just crash. So always make sure that your loops are terminating. And in the case of the while loop, look at this code carefully. You start, the count variable has the value of 0. And then you are checking if 0 is less than 5. This is going to be true, right? So it's going to keep repeating what is here. You are just printing the count. It will keep printing it. But look, if you don't increase the value of count, then this is going to stay true forever. So in the while loop, always, after you get to the end of your code, just increase the value of count. So once you come back here, every time the loop runs, it's going to check the condition again before it decides whether to execute this or not. So now if you increase the count, then when the code gets here first, count is 0. So this is true. It's going to execute. Now this count plus, do you guys remember what it is? let's demonstrate this. This is important, very, very important, guys. Again, once you get these foundations, especially the ones that we are looking at today, any code that you look at, guys, you can explain it with confidence. And you can also, I just want to get to the point where you guys can write code yourself to solve your own problems. Any simple problems that I'll give you, but any things that you can think of, if you can represent it in this way and solve it, okay? But that's all coding is, right? At the end of the day, you know, representing day-to-day activities in a way that a computer can understand, you know. So here the count is 0. Once we get here, count is going to be 0. So is 0 less than 5? True. So this will execute. Now count plus plus. When I do this, I'm writing a comment in the code. Is it not the same as count plus 1?
Yes.
It is the same, right? We saw this in the operators. So, you know, any serious developer will write it this way instead of writing it this way. But at the end of the day, it's the same thing. If you look at this way, does it make more sense to you that the code will start from here, the value is 1, then it will come here, count. Let me go and check what is in count. It's 0. Right now, count is 0. So it's going to add 0 plus 1, and then it's going to get 1, and then it will assign that 1 to count again. So you should remember that in coding, now your variable is equal to 0 here. As code is happening, as things are happening, you can change the value to something else, say 7. So this value can keep changing as time goes on, right? And that's normal. It's a normal part of code. So like I said, code is all about the data. You are manipulating the data to get what you want. Right? So you start with 0, and then if something happens, you can change it to 7. And then once you finish everything, whatever the value is, you can, you know, reprint it. So this is a normal behavior, okay? Of course, if you don't want this to happen, then you have to say constant. If you make this a constant, it means that this value will not change in the code. So later on, if somebody tries to change it, there will be an error, okay? So here, it's not throwing an error, but if I execute the code, it's not going to work. So that's why we use the var and the let for values that will change in the code. Okay, so that being said, let me go back. So let me execute this code. Who can tell me what the output is going to be? Okay, so yeah, is somebody trying? What is the output going to be? Okay, this is the output. Count from 0 to.
Oh, because it started at 0.
Yep.
It has to be less than 5. And each one is adding because of the plus 1.
Each one is added.
It's increasing because of the plus 1.
It's increasing each time. It's increasing because of plus 1. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. And then this one here, we just call it string interpolation. String interpolation. That's the key term. It allows you to just, you know, append a variable to a string, right? The way that will make sense to the user, right? So that's perfect. Do you all understand this code? So the first time this loop is true, count is going to be 0. So console.log count and then 0. And then you increase the value of count to plus 1. And then you come up here. Now count is not 0, count is 1. So you are just printing the 1 will come here. That's why you have count 1. Then you increase the value again. Then by the time you get to the fourth, when count is 5, 5 is not less than that. So this condition is going to fail. And so the loop will break. Very powerful principle. So I have a question. If I make this 2, can you guys tell me what is going to print?
0, 2, 4.
0, 2, 4. That's 0, 2, 4. That's true. Perfect. Thank you. Now let's execute. 0, 2, 4. Yep. If I make this 3, what is it going to print?
0, 3.
0, 3. Okay. Any questions? Tina, do you understand this one?
Can you go through it again, please?
Sorry. I'm trying to close my AC. Hello, Tina, what did you say?
I said, can you go through it again, please?
Yes. So this while is a loop, and you understand the loop, it means that keep doing something repeatedly.
Yeah.
As long as a certain condition is true.
Mm-hmm.
So let me make this 1 for now. So this code, when it gets here, what is the value of count? Is going to be 0, right?
Yeah.
Now your while loop is checking if count is less than 5. Is it true? 0 is less than 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to execute whatever that is in this. And what is in this? It means what? Print count. This is just a string, right?
Mm-hmm.
Plus. This plus, because string, we call it concatenation yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Then we are saying that print the value of count. So when the code comes here, what is the value of count? Is 0, right?
That's good.
So it's going to print 0 here. You understand that one? It's printing 0 because it will go into the variable and the value in there is 0. Well, let me execute so you see look at the output so that we want to compare the code and the output to see why we have this output, okay?
Okay.
So see this count here, this one is nothing but this one here. That's this. It's not really part of the code. It's just a string, right? It's a string that you just want to print to let us know that this is a count. You could have put anything here. Whatever you put over there will print. Whatever you put there will come there. But you want to put something that makes sense. So you just know that you're counting the loops, the number of times the loop is running, right? So, I mean, actually, that's not what we're doing. We're just counting. Let's call it count. So count 0. So the first loop you have, the first time the loop runs, first time, this is true. So it's going to print 0 here. That is this line here, only this one. Count is 0. So now it's going to go to the second line. What is this line doing, Tina?
Is the count plus 1.
Yes. So in other words, whatever value count is right now, add 1 to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what is the value of count right now? Count is 0, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we add 1 to it, count is going to become 1. So it will come and check the condition again. This time it's using the value of count, which is 1. 1 is 1 less than 5?
Yes.
Good. So it will come to the second line. It's going to execute this then. So now we are saying that print count plus the value of count, which is 1. So is this value. That is this line here. And then it will go to this line here. And this line, what is it doing? Is adding 1 to the value of count. And now the value of count is 1. If you add 1 to it, what do you have? 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is 2 less than 5? True.
Yes.
Yes.
So now you are printing the 2 here. That is that. This whole line of code will happen again. So now this time count is 2. Now you add 1 to 2, you get 3. 3 less than 5, that's true. So this will print again, and it's printing the 3. Now you add 1 to 3, what you got? 4. Is 4 less than 5? Yes.
Yes.
So now you are printing your 4 here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is this one here. Now, if you add 1 to 4, you have 5, right? Count is 5. Now this condition is going to fail. Is 5 less than 5? No.
No.
So this will not have, it won't print anything here. It will jump that. And because it jumped it, there is nothing to do here, right? That is why there is nothing more here.
So if we put less than or equals to 5, it's going to print 5 for us, right?
Yeah, it's gonna print 5. It will. So it's gonna, sorry.
That count that's there that has the string count, right?
Yeah.
That one you don't add anything to it.
So that's good. This is a question of data structure. See, if I do 1 plus 1, because both of them are numbers, it's going to give you 2.
Mm-hmm.
But if I do a string, say Kofi plus Ama, it's not addition. These are strings. So it's just going to append. They call it joining, Kofi Ama. This is what you get.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is not adding a number. It's just, so when you get here, whatever the value of count is, so you can see that this is a string, right? Because it's in a bracket.
Mm-hmm.
So you just say you're gonna have count plus whatever the value of count is, which is say is gonna be say 2. So this 2 is a number, but they will convert it into a string. They call it explicit conversion. No, implicit conversion. It is a number 3, but they're gonna convert it into a string. And so string plus string is gonna give you count. So because we put a space here, that's why there's a space over there. If we didn't put a space over there, it would just add it together. You're gonna have count 3. 3. So this looks ugly. So that's what we decided to just decorate it by putting this and adding another space so that over here, whatever we do is what's gonna happen, right? See. You see? So whatever output that you want to have, that's what you try to replicate here so that you get that.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the key point is that this count is a number and you're adding it to a string. So you can add a number to a string. So the code will convert the number to a string first. It will not convert the string to a number because sometimes strings, you can't convert them to numbers, but all numbers, you can convert them into a string and it will have this. And then now you are just joining them. You're joining the two things. And if you are confused, we can remove this from there. We don't need to put it there. We can just print the count only. And then you can see what we got. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is even better.
Yeah. Okay. It's better this way, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Whatever count is, just print it. Yeah. Okay. So then, Ibrahim, your question, if you put equal here, then when it's 5, it will still pass this test. So it will print the 5 also. Right. So you have to control when to stop the loop. That's up to you. And you can also control how you jump in the print. If we make it 3, for instance, then 0, then here 0 plus 3 is going to be 3. So you're going to print, that's why you're going to print 0, 3, 0 and 3. Because now when you come in 0 and then you add 3 to it, now you have your 3, you print your 3, and then if you add 3 to 3, you're going to get 6. 6 is not less than or equal to 5. So this condition will fail and then nothing will happen. And if you can make this go on forever, whichever way you want, right? Just, it depends on the problem that you are solving. That's all, you see? So this loop will just continue as long as this condition is true, right? So that's the power of programming. Imagine if you had to do this by yourself, it's going to be a lot of work. For instance, if you have to write a lot of print statements, let me demonstrate what I mean. Let's just go back to the 5, and then let's add 1. And let's make this one say 15. So this loop, you just keep printing the count as long as this condition is true. So we are printing 0 to 14, right? Now, if you didn't use the loop, you would have to do this. You would have to just say console.log 1. And then you have to say console.log 2. You have to actively print this. Console.log 3. You see, it's gonna print as many times as you tell it to, right? 4. So let me just remove this for now. Just cut it in my hands. If I save, see, we have 1 to 4. We want to continue. We need to get to 15, right? Console.log. We need to get to 15, so 5. Can you see how difficult this is? You have to write up to 15. Can you see how many lines of code you are writing? It's too much work and it's laborious. But if you have the loop, look at the loop, it simplifies your life. It's just this much line of code, and if you execute, it's printing 15 times. And because 15 looks small, sometimes you want to print like 100 or 1,000 times, right? You want to do something many, many times, right? And it doesn't matter. It will do it for you very fast. So that is the power of the loop. So you can reduce complicated problems into a loop form, and then you are good. You know? So let's say you have to pay your workers. You have to pay your workers, and the code in this place is paying the worker. You can say, while the count is less than the number of employees you have. So remember that computer science, the count always begins from 0, 1, 2, 3. So if you are interested in printing 5 items, you have to say less than 5. Because it's gonna start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's 5 for you, okay? So always remember that. So if you want to pay your number of employees, you have to say y count is less than number of employees. Because you're doing the same thing, right? As long as the count is, you know, and every time, of course, this is a different problem. Every time you have to change the employee that you are paying. So there is a way you change it also. We're gonna see all of that. But there are many usages of this. That's the point I'm saying. And when you see that we are using it to solve practical problems, that is when you would appreciate it more, okay? Remember, coding is all about automation. So there are different types of loops, but they are all doing the same thing. Look at the for loop. The for loop is one of the oldest loops out there. It's doing the same thing. So let's see the for loop, how for loop will solve this problem. At the end of the day, it is a loop, right? Loop means you want to do one thing repeatedly, but remember that you need to break. You don't want to do it forever. So something is preventing me from clicking here. Gosh. I'm trying to indent the code, that's all, you see? So look at the for loop. The for loop, so it's very similar to the while loop, right? But it has 3 parts, see? So there you have to initialize a counter. Initialize a counter. So we are using I over here. You could have used a count. You could call it anything. You can call it index. They don't care what you call it. So Normally we use I and J. So the for loop, you have to start the I from somewhere. So we are starting the I from 0 here. Now, when do you want the loop to break? When I is less than 5. When I is less than 5, then break. So let me bring the 5 back so that we see. And then how do you want to increase the I? Here we are saying I++, which means what? I equals I plus 1, right? So you are saying that begin for loop says for I starting from 0, I less than 5, I++. This is the way you read this code. Then just print this. Keep doing this. Keep doing whatever is in here. So that is the way the for loop looks like. So we can remove this. It is very similar to the while loop. Everything in the while loop is in the for loop here. Everything that we showed in the while loop, maybe I should bring it back. Everything that is here can be found in this. So sometimes you want to use the while, or sometimes you want to use the for loop. It's a matter of preference. So if I take this away and I execute this, one way of executing is to just refresh the browser. Look at what we have. Iteration 1 to 4. So there's something called iterate, to iterate over something, just loop through it. So that's what we are calling it, iteration here. This is the first iteration, second iteration, third, fourth, like that. Is it clear here? So I'm just showing the for loop, the way the for loop is and how it works. Of course, we can spend a lot of time here, but the point is that think of the while loop because we understand the while loop. So there is a count starting from 0. So we call this initialization. You have to initialize something. So that's exactly what we have here. I'm using the count so that you see that is the same. So the var is how you create a variable, right? So you need to create a variable in the for loop and initialize it to a number. And then there is a stopping criteria, which is the condition. At what point do you want to stop? When your count is less than 5. And then how do you want to increment the count? Because the count has to change. If it's not changing, then there's a problem. Your loop will become an infinite loop. So it has to change. So here we are just saying count plus plus. And as I said, remember this is exactly the same as this. And then you can put your count. What do we want to print count at every time? Print count here. So if we save this, I'm going to remove this. It will still produce the same output. You see, producing the same output. So look, we call this what? For statement or for loop statement. So this whole thing is one statement, you see, but it's a lot of things condensed into one so that you are able to do something repeatedly for as long as you want. We can make this, instead of incrementing it by 1, we can increment it by 2. And the stopping criteria, we can change it to say 15 and then increment it by 1. It depends on what you're doing. It all depends on what you're doing. So once you have this for loop, you can solve a lot of problems. Sometimes you don't want to start counting from 0. Maybe you want to start counting from 5. And you print. So the problem can tell you, I want you to print all the numbers between 5 and 15. All the numbers between 5 and not all the numbers, because numbers are complicated. You say all integers between 5 and 15. So if it says between, it doesn't mean that, it probably they don't want you to include a 5, right? So you can say, because 5 shouldn't be there, I can start from 6, and then this is good. It will not print 15 anyway, so. And then you see 6 to 14. You see, somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they're gonna start from 5. And you're not solving the problem if you do that. You understand? The problem given to you is that print all the numbers starting, all the numbers between 5 and 15. Right? So if you say you start your count from 5, look at what's happening. There's a problem. But of course, you can start from 5, but you can choose to add 1 here also. I just want to show you that there are many ways of killing a cat, right? There are many ways of killing a cat. So let's save this. And let me see what this does, okay? So here it's a little tricky because we are doing string interpolation. So it's going to convert everything into string and then add it. So this is not what you want. How should I do it? How should I do this? Guys, I have a question. I want to add 1 to 5, 1 to the count before I print it. How should I? You cannot do it on the same line here. I mean, I don't know how to say this enough, right? You want to add numbers, you can add them. But if you are mixing numbers and strings and you're adding them, it will just convert all the numbers into strings and then join them together. It's not going to do proper addition. So there's a way you can do this thing here. But then we have to use a backtick. On my keyboard, I don't know what a backtick is. Let me see if I can find it. So there's one way I wanted to find a backtick. I can't find it on my keyboard. So I'll show you that the best way you should do that is this. Don't do it here. Increase the count before you print it. Or we can just put the count. Or you can get rid of the string. Just get rid of the string. If you get rid of the string, then these are 2 integers or 2 numbers, so you can add them. This is the one of the fastest ways. So if you print, it's going to print from 6 to 15. 6 to 15. Guys, do you want me to talk about the string interpolations a little bit? Or we should move on? The addition and the adding strings and numbers together.
Yeah.
Should I talk about it or we should move on?
Oh, you can talk about it.
Okay, let me make sure we thank you. So iteration, if you have iteration plus a count variable plus 1. And then you just have, say, 20 plus count plus 1. The difference is that this 20 is a number, 1 is a number, count is coming as number, right? So this it's going to do the math. You don't do math with strings. If you want to do math, the data has to be numbers, right? This is numbers. But now, if you are doing this, you can see that this is a string, this is a number, this is a number. So it's not going to do math that way. It's going to do string concatenation. And the reason is that, so instead of using count, let's just use number here, so 20. So that, let me also use 20 here. So this one is going to give me 41. Because they are all numbers, so you can add them. But this one, because this is not a number, if I want to convert this one into a number, is it possible? Can iteration become a number? It's tough. You can't do that. It's not possible. But can I convert this 20 into a string? Yes, I can. I can just do this. And then can I convert 1 into a string? Yes, I can. I can do this. Sorry. You see? So what the code is going to do here is not going to add 20 and 1 and get. It's not going to get 21 and then give you iteration. Sorry, just copy and paste it and give you, because now you are joining two strings, so you're just joining this 21. Of course, the output will have the string there, even if you don't see it. It's not going to do this for you. It's not going to do this because this doesn't make sense. So what makes sense is that it's going to convert all the numbers into strings like this. And then if you concatenate this, or if you join them together, now you have this, and then you have this. This is what you're going to get. So always don't forget this one, okay? Because sometimes it will help you to know how to manipulate the output. So now question time. Question time, what will I get for? And I'm actually spending time here because if you guys understand this one, then I believe that our job is done pretty much. We're just gonna learn the concepts and then we are good. Count plus 1. What will I get? And because I'm writing code, I'm using double equal. If I use single equal, that's an assignment. I don't want to assign. I want to check for equality. Okay, so now also I'm gonna have 5 plus 5 equals what? Let me put a question mark because I need you guys to tell me. Now the next one is gonna be iteration plus 55, and then iteration plus 2000. Yeah, I think this is good enough. So what will I get for this? Who wants to try?
It will be count 1.
Count 1. Like I'll write it and then you tell me if I got it right. Count. Read it. What should I write here?
1 0
Like this?
0, yeah.
It will be this one?
Yeah.
Why? Can you justify that? I'll put it in the
because
sorry.
It's a string. So you forgot the semicolon. Yeah.
So it will be this?
Yes.
Why?
Since it's a string, it will just print out the way it is.
Okay, so is that the way it is? Again, this is programming, so like I said, we need to be very careful. See, let me show you that. See, if I do 1, 2, 3, right? See 3 numbers there. Now let's check that on 1.
Also, is space in between?
See, sorry, I want to demonstrate. Can you see there is a character here? See?
Yeah, there's space.
So the space is a space character, right?
Yeah.
So we can't ignore it. It's important. It's a space character. So I should put it here, right? 1 space. Even if I wanted a trick, I could make it 2 spaces, but you have to be sure to put 2 spaces there. But they are characters, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is perfect. Thank you very much. Now, what about this one?
That one will just be 10.
It will just be 10. That's right. Now let's somebody else try the next. Thank you, because they are numbers, right?
Right.
What would this one be? Ibrahim or Justina, please. Sorry, guys. Very sorry.
I'm sorry, I was having so much trouble with my connection. It kept on logging me out and I couldn't hear or see what was going on.
It's
so,
okay.
Yeah, so sorry to make you go over it again, but for the iteration.
The question is that this expression here, what is it going to give us? What will be the output? Right, if you print this expression. Not even print, if you evaluate this expression, what would you get?
10.
2?
10 iteration. Wait, what is iteration again?
It doesn't matter what it is, right? It's a data, right? This is data. That's a string data, right? And then this is another data called what? Number 55. So if you add a number and a string, what do you get? So you don't need to know what this means. It's just it could have been anything in here, right? So what we are saying is that because strings, you can't convert them into numbers, you have to now convert a number to string before you can add it, right? So this one, if you have to evaluate, what you would do, you have to say, now convert this number to string. How do I do that? Wrap it around the quotation marks like that. And then now you can now do your final thing, which is joining them. If you join them, you're gonna have this. Remember there is a space here. It's empty space, so it's part of the string. So you need to make sure you add it too. So this is the answer that I was expecting. You know?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Ibrahim, are you there?
So the previous ones also have space. Right?
This one. Yeah, so we need to add it. Sorry, guys. Sorry, we need to add it. Yep. Yeah, so we need to. So in the same spirit, this will give us iteration.
Iterations.
Sorry?
No, I'm just saying iteration.
Space.
200 space. 2001.
Perfect. So, like, the computer will give you the answer, but you need to always understand why it got that, because you're gonna want to change the answer sometimes. Remember, you dictate what the computer should print, right? So if you don't know why it is getting it, you won't be able to make those changes. So these are very, very important. The topic is explicit and implicit conversion of data or values. We might see it again, but now that we spend time on it, when we get there, we will just sprint through it. Okay. So now so the other loop is the for in loop, the for in. You just have to know this type of loops are there, so that depending on the problem that you are solving, you also have to determine what type of loop can I use to solve this. So the for in loop, I'm not going to demonstrate it, but this type of data type, you haven't seen it before. This is an object in JavaScript. So when we get there, I think we can learn this for in loop. So all that is saying is that for, and then you are saying, you declare your variable in person. So this is a data type, right? It has all these things in there. So for property in this, you could use anything here. Then you are now printing the person at that position. So I have to teach you the way of assessing this type of data. That is a JavaScript object. So I'll just skip that for now. But there is another loop called for in. I mean, we can use this one to print arrays, but I don't think we've learned arrays. I haven't taught you guys arrays yet. But a collection of numbers, yeah, we can use it to test arrays, but yeah, I think let's just use it to test arrays. So the for of, So the four in and the 4 off are similar, right? 4 in and 4 off. That's special type of loops. Let's demonstrate the 4 off and then see if we can turn it into a 4 in. You know, so but the most famous ones are the while loop and then the for loop, which we have spent time on. But these ones here, they are very short type of loops. So let me quickly introduce arrays a little bit. Array. So if you look at the variables that we've been creating, we can say var color equals yellow. So can I say this? Can I write this line of code? I cannot, right? Because I'm trying to assign a string, so I need to put it in quotation marks. If you just write it like that, they think that it's a variable name. So you can see just one value that I'm assigning here. But what if I want to assign more values, more than one value? That is when we have something called array. Sometimes some languages, they also call it a list. So list of colors, right? So look at here, colors, we have list of them, list of colors. So if you want to loop through this, you want to print every item in the list. How are you going to do it? You know, you can do this. You can say console.log. If you want to print the first number here, don't worry, we're gonna learn this again, okay? I need to really teach you this. It's very simple principle, but it's very, very important. Because in the industry, most of the data that you're going to be dealing with is going to come as a list. It will not just be one value. It's going to be a list of items. So if you want to print the first number here, you have to say color at index 0. If you want to print the second one, you say what? 1. I'm going to print the last one, which is at the second position. So 0, 1, 2. So in case I ask you to print everything in here, you're going to need 3 if statement, 3 console.log 0, 1. Without any loop, that's what you're going to need. If I cut this in the browser, you're going to have so there's already an error. What is it? So colors equals 0, 0, 1, 2. Oh, can you guys see the error? So you can also read, it says that color is not defined. Color is not defined. There is no variable called color. What variable do we have?
Colors.
Thank you. Colors. So you might, that's how this can be a typical bug in the industry. You have to come back and check it. Then you know what is wrong. Let me go back. So it's printing everything. Without any loop, this is what we have. So what if this list is like a lot? It's almost like 15 items or 100 items. Are you going to print each of them one by one? That's problematic. So with this loop, you can do it with very small amount of code. So this one says var color. So var, remember, it's like we're declaring the color of colors. So this is for off loop. So for off loop, all that it means is that for every item in this, what do you want to do? Print that item. It's very simple loop, but it's very powerful. It's not complicated like the for loop. It's not as complicated as the while loop either. So var color in colors. What do you want to do? You want to print color. You want to print that color. So of course I can remove this, but I'll leave it there since we just talked about string interpolation. I think we all understand how this will evaluate. We understand string interpolation. So we are adding this string to whatever is here. So when it's red, it's two strings, so just add it. So you have this. Everything makes sense?
Yes.
So when it comes to the loop,
Yeah.
just know that they are there. I'm going to use the for in instead of the for off. See, for in and for off, they're very similar. So let's try to see if the for in is going to work here. For in. Let's see if that works. So that, you see the trick. So the for in is very tricky. For in is very, very tricky. You can see it is printing the index. Right now, I'm saying the for in, you see, for color in colors, it's printing the index. See, this one, the array, one way to think about it is they store the value at indexes. Sorry. So index 0 is the key, and then the value is this. There's something called key value pairs. Yeah, as soon as I teach you guys this one, then you are perfect, man. You can really understand code. So this one for color in colors, if you're using the in, then you're looking at the indexes. So if I want to print this value here, I have to now say colors at color. It's just the differences, right? They all cannot be the same. So that depending on the problem you're solving, you have choices, right? So now if I do this, you see now we get everything. So instead of saying color, really this is not color, this is the index of color. So index of color. So I'm showing you guys the loops that are out there, right? The number of loops out there. Remember, you can use any name here. You can even use anything, as long as you're doing the right thing. But you cannot, if you do this, it's a very bad code because nobody will understand the code if they come back later on. It will still work. Computer understands it, but if it's for in, know that you are dealing with the index of a list. So it's better to just use the name like that. And then you're good. Right? So guys, you can practice this. Any questions? No questions. Okay. Now, so we've done the for off and the for in. The last one that we are looking at is the do while. Do while is very important. But mostly, like, even in the industry, we have a lot of code, but I think I've seen only one do while loop in there. I've only seen one. Imagine that. So we don't use it often, but it's very, very useful depending on the problem that you're solving, right? So do while. You see the while loop, the while, you are checking the condition before you do this. But a do while, it will do this one time, and then it will check the condition. That's the only difference. So this one here, if this condition is false, it will not execute this at all. But a do while, we are saying that execute it one time and then check the condition. So sometimes, depending on the problem that you are solving, you need to do it at least one time before you decide to not do it at all. So let's try this example. Right? It's just now, once you know you have these options available to you, when you're solving problems, you look at a problem and then you're like, what kind of loop can I use? What kind of loop can I use to solve this? Okay, guys, I'm feeling like we've really gone far with the JavaScript now, because now that we are looking at this general concepts of programming, our life will be very easy. And not only the JavaScript, any other language that you try to do later on, you have the foundations, guys. Just be sure to understand these principles, that's all. But if you see an application of it, that's when you're going to appreciate it more. Okay, so I appreciate your patience in just, trying to understand the concepts. Because at the end of the day, this is the little things, right, that make bigger things. Big things are made from bigger things. So now look at this. So you're saying that let x be equal to 0. Remember, this is a variable. It could be any name. We could call it count. We could call it anything. So he's saying that print the value of x first, and then increase the value of X, and then check the condition now. So the only difference here is, like I said, do is going to execute this first, and then it will check the condition. If the condition doesn't pass, it will not go back and do it again. It will just skip. So that's all you need to understand. But some problems, nobody will tell you that that's the way you should solve it. So the way you solve the problem, you have to think within the context of the things that you have available to you. You have the conditionals, the if statements, and the switch. And then the loops, you have the loops available to you. So to solve the problem, compare the problem with the loop and see which of the loops you can use to solve it. I mean, there are questions here, examples here that we can look at. And I want us to look at it because, guys, if you understand loops and conditionals, then you have it figured out. Trust me, you do. So I created this thing here called loop practice questions. I'm going to say loops later on. So I give some questions over here that you can use to practice. This question says, print the numbers from 1 to 5. And I'm using a for loop. Simple, very powerful though, because if you have to print it one by one, then you'll be in trouble. And then this one, using the while loop, you can try this at home, just go through it. I just want us to look at the do while example. So they said I ask a user to guess a number between 1 and 5, and then keep prompting them until they guess the number correctly. See, you are asking the user to guess a number, right? And then he says, keep asking them until they get the number correct. So if you have to solve this problem, it's very easy to think. If you think in terms of do while, then your life can be very easy. So the guess, they have to do the first guess. So you let's say that the secret number is 3, and then he's creating a variable called guess. So look at the way they are using the do while loop. The first prompt will come and ask a question. Guess a number between 1 and 15. To ask a question is the prompt. This will come as a string, and they are converting it into an integer. It's just sometimes you need to do variable conversions. Sometimes you don't. So let me just paste this, and then we can think properly here. So there are many games that are like this also. Okay, so we want to solve this question. Guys, do you understand the question? Because if you want to solve a question, let's make sure we understand it first. This question, do you understand this question?
Yeah.
Thank you. So now we have to break it down into ways in which we can.
Ibrahim had to leave.
Okay. Ibrahim has to leave?
He wrote it in the chat.
Oh, okay. We would leave the recording available.
Yeah, he said he'll watch it later.
Yeah. Currently he's still here though, but maybe he's listening, but he can't speak. So that's fine. So sir, we'll leave the recording and you can catch up from there. Today, let's just finish this introduction though, please. Let's finish it. We're almost done. We do functions and then we are done. So let me show you how you're gonna solve this, okay? And then we can move on. I'll give you a lot of examples you can try to. So secret number is equal to 3. It has to be between 1 and 5. You can make this complicated. There is a way that you can randomly select a number between 1 and 5. But we're gonna do that later on. For now, let's just choose 3 up here. That this is our secret number. The user will never see this number. So we are creating a variable to store the guess that we get from the user. So do while. So the first time we're just gonna ask the user, prompt a number. So this will come make a guess. So now whatever number they enter, we are telling them to guess between 1 and 5. We are telling them. So now whatever they enter, we have it here. We are storing, this is the same variable here, we store it. So now we are checking this variable and the secret number to make sure they are the same. So look at the way this is set. If they are not the same, then you need to let them keep entering it. So what they enter, if it is not equal to the secret number, that means that this condition is going to be true, right? As long as this condition is true, as long as it's true, you have to keep doing this. So in other words, they didn't enter the correct guess. So let them keep guessing. And as soon as this condition is not true anymore, now you come here and then you tell them, congratulations, you guessed it. A very simple game, but very, very powerful. And look at how we coded it, right? Just with the knowledge of do while, you force the question to fit into the loop structure, you know? So let's go into, do you guys have any problem understanding this code?
No.
Okay.
What's the paras?
Yeah, the pass end. So pass end, you see that when the one that I showed you when we had two strings like iteration, and then we were concatenating it with the number 200. And I said that this is a number, they have to convert it into a string first, and then they will now join them. So now if pass int is one way of converting one data from one type to another. So if they enter the number 3 if they enter 3, they enter 3 as a string. They enter it as a string. If you want to convert this string into an integer, you want it to become an integer. The way you do it, they give you this function. You just have to pass this 3 in there, and it will convert it into 3 for you, into a number 3 for you. You see that, like I said, that if you want to do math, you want to have whatever the data is, it has to be a number. So this prompt, it takes a string, even though they're going to enter a number, but it's going to become a string. But we don't want it as a string. We want it as a number. Why? Because this is a number. So we want to compare numbers. You can compare numbers and numbers. You cannot compare strings and numbers. So that is why we are converting this into a string. Does that make sense? Into a number.
Yes.
It's just how you do it. It does. If you want to convert a string to a number, this is how you do it. Put that number, whatever the value is, which is a string, into that function, and you're going to have a number, right?
Okay, got it.
Yes. So that's what is happening. And you could avoid doing this, and I'll show you how you can avoid doing that. So let's see this in the code. You see right away is asking for the guess. So let me just write 4. What is going to happen? It's going to, you see, I entered 4. 4 is not equal to 3. So it's still asking me to guess the number. So let me, as soon as I enter 2, 2 also won't work because 2 is not equal to 3. If I enter 3, now it will work and say, congratulations, you guessed it. See? Yeah. So one way you could have avoided the passing, you can try it for me. Can somebody try that? See, the number that is coming is gonna have this around it. If they enter 3, it's gonna come as this. If they enter 4, it's gonna come as this. So if I don't want to do the passing, what can I do? I'm changing it because I wanted this to be the same as this. So if I make this the same as what the people are entering, like this, then there is no need for me to convert it. It will be in the same format anyways. right? So you can see how the knowledge of just changing and then congratulations, it worked. The knowledge of the conversion of numbers is making a huge difference in the code, right? It's making a huge difference. Do you guys understand what I did? Or you want me to do it again? I can do it again if you want. See, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to go back. You see how see this prompt here? This prompt ends over here. And it will take the numbers. Whatever they enter, this function will give me that. And then let's say they enter this. Oh, sorry. I thought it would allow me to replace this, but whatever they enter, it will come like this now. As soon as they enter something, the code will reduce to this. And then now this will now convert it into a number for me. Oh gosh, the computer is slow now. It will just convert it into a number for me so that they will be in the same format so I can compare them, right? So yeah. So I didn't want to do the conversion, so I'm making this one be in the same format as they will give me so that I don't have to do any conversion. So I can get rid of the whole %. Don't worry. It's looking messy, but I'll fix it. Oh, I should. So I want to get rid of the %, so you can just copy this. And I'll show you another way we can do it again. So I showed you this way. Oh gosh, the computer is pretty slow, so it's making it difficult for me. And I'll make sure that we end at 1 o'clock on the dot also. So that will be about 2 hours of our time. So, so this is how you get the input from the user, right? The prompt. We all know that, we've seen it. So this is going to work. I just demonstrated it. I don't need to do any conversion. So another way I can do it, even if this is this, you can see that this is a number and this is going to give me a string. If I want to be able to compare them without comparing the type of the data, I just want to compare the value itself. Then instead of using this triple equal sign, I can just use second, only 2. But this one is not straight. It's not straight comparison. It's just going to compare the numbers. So if I use this one, then 3 is going to be equal to, how to say it? 3 is going to be equal to 3 like this. You see, when we're learning the operators, I said that it's very, very important, all these little things. That is the code. See, so this and this are equal. Remember this exclamation sign is, if you want to reverse the logic, then you say this, not equal. So the opposite of this sign is the double equal. So this kind of comparison is a loose comparison. It's not a very deep comparison. It's only going to check the value, not the type of the value. But if you make it 3 like this, then it's not only going to check the value, but it's going to check the value and the type. So you can see that they are the same in terms of value, but the type of this is a number and the type of this is a string. So this is not true. This is going to be false. This is going to be like this. Yep. But don't worry. At least you understand the concept. If you are solving a complicated problem, you know how to use them easily. Because you see that the code is not working. So you look at it and think, and then. So all I'm saying is that because I'm not doing deep comparison, this code is also going to work. And if I have to leave here, just refresh that. So let me just enter 3 right away because I know what it is. And boom, it's still saying congratulations. You see the same code, you can change it in so many ways. But you can see that we are able to do it because we have advanced knowledge. We understand the basics of programming. We understand the basics. We are thinking in terms of the data types, and the operators. So this is what makes a difference between a junior developer and a senior developer. Senior developers, they always think in terms of the data type and all that, like what I just did here. But somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they will not understand these things. So please watch this video, make sure you understand it. Any other code that you are doing, you're gonna appreciate this content a lot because it will be a walk in the park. Okay. So that is that. So I think loops, I have other examples here. Please, when you go home, just look at them and convince yourself. If you have any questions, we can talk about it. So the next, and probably, I mean, scopes, I may not cover scope. What is the next important and the most important thing is the functions, which is very similar to the loops. See, functions is just a concept. Function is just a concept. So it will be very easy to teach it. It's just a concept. You can see how the loop allows you to do things over and over again. Now the function allows you to group the code into one place and give it a name, so that anytime you call that name, it will do what the code is doing. It's only going to do what the code is doing when you call it. So function is very, very good. And even in math, I have a question here that I was thinking this morning that I will ask you. In math, do you guys remember this thing called f of x? This mathematics, f of x equals 2x plus, say, 4x plus 1. You remember these things in math?
Yes.
And what name do they call it? Functions, right?
Mhm.
This is a function. Yeah, so that's the same principle. And then in math, they will ask you to find f of 2. Find f of 2. That means that wherever you see x, put 2 there, right?
Right.
And then evaluate. So that is all there is to functions. The function is this way. This is like the definition. And then later on, you can now, anytime you need, you can keep changing the x and then getting different values. So in code also is the same thing. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Let me just do this. Sorry, I'll turn this into a function. You once you have this in math, later on in anytime they can actually find f of 5. Later on, they can actually find f of 10 or 70. It doesn't matter. You just, once they give you this, you go into your equation, substitute x for this, and then you get what you want. That's the same concept of function. So here, I'll show you the way you declare the function in code. You just bring function, give it a name, and then this is like the x, parentheses, you open parentheses, and then your x is over here. And then whatever you do. So in code, the way you do it, you just bring function is a keyword, give it a name, and then give a parameter, say x. And then whatever you want to do. In this case, I'm just printing hello x. But in the case of what is up there, I have to. So there's something called return. Return keyword means that you want the function to give you a value after it is finished. So let me just say var result. I'm declaring a variable called result. I'm just gonna convert this into code for you to see. So just type the whole thing. So in code, if you want to do multiplication, you have to use that, and then that, and that's it. So let me just, you give it a name that makes sense. Say evaluate. Evaluate. Give it a name that makes sense. So once what this is going to do is that whatever value that I give, say f of 5, is going to plug 5 here, and whatever that it gets here is going to save it into this, and then I can just say return. Return result. Return result. So I could have done this. I could also say console.log. I can just let me just do the console.log first because that's the easiest way. Console, just print the results. It's not returning anything, it's just gonna print it. Okay, so now this is, you define the function like this, and then later on in your code, let's say you want to do f of 5, you can just say f of 5, put 5 here. It will put 5 into this expression, whatever it gets, it will print it. So this is the idea of functions. Later on, if you want to say f of 70, so code makes our life very, very easy, like extremely easy. So functions, they look like the loops, but they are different in their own sense, because it's only going to work when you call it. You don't have to always type this out and, you know. So let me just demonstrate. I'm sure you get a concept, right? If we go into the console, the console, see, evaluate, this one is printing 31, because if you put 5 here, 2 times 5 is 10, and then 4 times 5 is what, 20. 20 plus 10 is what, 30, plus 1, 31. So this same thing we did in math, if you want to do it in coding, this is how you do it. And you are not always doing math. You can see coding, we use it to solve real life problems. You can also use it to do math also. So I just showed you what a function is. So it's doing this over and over again, but it's only going to do it when you call it. If you call it, then it will do it. If you don't call it, it will not do it. If I remove this from here, nothing is going to happen, because we are not calling the function. And
so the call is the evaluate.
Yeah, the call is the evaluation. You call the name. This is the name that you've given it. You call it, and then this is a parameter. So you are printing the parameter. Not every function has a parameter. Some functions don't have a parameter. So you can just remove this. This one like this, it doesn't have a parameter, but in your code, you can put a number there, say 50. Whatever you want to do, right? It depends on what you're doing. So if I want to call this function, it has no parameter, so I don't have to pass anything. Sorry. So there is a function with a parameter, function without a parameter. So now this one, it's like I'm doing f of 50, because they didn't give me the choice to enter what I want. It's just, you know. So most useful functions, they will have a parameter here so that it allows you to, you know, get different results anytime the value changes. So that is functions, brothers and sisters. And oh no, my sister's not listening in my life. So here you can also modify this and just put it right here. It's still the same, but I guess we'll have more time to look at different ways of writing this when we study JavaScript. So that's fine. Any questions? And the parameters, you can put as many parameters as you want, X, Y, and then you use it. You can use both of them. You can say, put the Y here, and then put the X here. So when you are calling it, it means that you need to pass 2 parameters, say 3 and 4. So these parameters, you see, it takes them and then it will, whatever you pass will be assigned to this. Whatever you pass here will be assigned to Y, and then they will be passed over here and it will evaluate. Very powerful, very, very powerful. That's the function. We'll look at it again when we do the JavaScript, but it's going to be the same. See, this function is adding 2 numbers. So I have a lot of examples, and I'm also teaching the return, to return the value, and division, so many, just different examples. So this is another function. We're calling it add. See, whatever the function is doing, it's better to give it a name like that. So this one is adding A and B, right? It takes A and B and add it. So it's not printing it. It's not printing it. So it's just returning the sum. So if you want to print it, you have to now use the console.log. It's gonna return the sum of whatever you give it. So call the function add, pass 2 numbers, so 50. You don't need to put plus, just give them the 2 numbers, 50 and 40. So this add is going to return the sum, which is 90, and then you now print it out. So this one will add 3 and 5 and put it in result. I'm doing nothing with the result. So if we go into the browser, you will see nothing there. So, I mean, the only thing we're going to see is the 90. See, we are not seeing the 3 plus 5 because we didn't print the result. So it's because we are using a return instead of printing. So we are saying add it, whatever you get, give it to us, and we will do whatever we want to do with it. So you can see what we want to do with it. We wanted to assign it to a variable. So we can now print that, we can now print it. Or we can use that in our calculation. Whichever way we want, right? And I have questions, I have examples on the page, so you can. So now I'm printing the result and I'm getting the 8. So it's just, so here we are teaching the arrow functions also. So there are shortcuts, you know, you can have functions on one line. I don't know, I'm looking at the time. But these are all examples, mostly. They are mostly examples. Closure and all that. So I guess just looking at the time, or let me just try to go through things. So there is something called anonymous function. Like I said, this is the name of the function. This is the parameters. Anonymous means it has no name, right? So if you define a function like this and you don't give it a name, how can we call it? But you can see the function is also like a value. Functions are values at the end of the day because it's going to give you a value at the end of the day. So if you define a function like this, it's a valid function. Sorry, it just doesn't have a name. So there is no way you can call it. You see, you need to call it by name. So if the function doesn't have a name, you can still assign it to a variable right away. Because at the end of the day, it's going to become a value anyway. So you can say var addition and do this. Now this is allowed, you see? So now if you want to call this, you can just call it through the addition. No, let me just call it add so that everything here will still work. So in the case of anonymous functions, that's the concept. But we're going to see it more later on in JavaScript as we go on. But it's just different ways of doing the same thing, you know, and they just want to make life easy for you, right? If the function is just, it's not a big function, you can fit it on the same line, then instead of, you don't need to even write the function keyword. You can remove the function keyword, and then you don't need this one. You can just do this equal sign and then this. And the return also, you don't need it. They are saving you time. Actually, you need the end just to show that. So this also will do the same thing. So it's a shorthand, just a way to simplify the function, right? Everything will still work the same. Because this one is division, but if you go into the browser, so I'm just trying to just go through the functions. So actually, all that you need to know about functions, as far as this foundational knowledge is concerned, we've already seen it. So essentially, all these are JavaScript specific. See, it is still working. Sometimes functions do a lot of things. Most of it, you're going to have a lot of code in there. So this is not going to work. If there's a lot of code, then you need to use the brackets and everything, right? The blocks. But if it's just small line, then, you know, yeah. So again, as you write a lot of code, you'll be using shorthand like this, but then these senior developers, they like to do that a lot. But, you know, when you're writing code, I think what is important is the ability to understand the code when you read it later on. right? If you write code like this one, it's very difficult to read it if you really don't know what you're doing. So I won't recommend it. I'm the old school guy. You can do it this way. This way is fine. So this one is just a greet function to greet somebody, and it's asking for the name of the person that you want to greet. And then as soon as you get the name, you pass the name here. Hello, that person. So this, I will also mention this. You can see now you have to enter the name before you see the greeting. Let me show you. So this will not work. This one won't work. For now, this won't work. But this is going to work because I have to pass the parameter, right? It's going to print hello, Alice. If you go there, we'll just end at the function. So that's why I'm still going through everything. So hello, Alice. You pass a name here, and then it will print that name with a hello. So what if you don't pass any name? There is something called default value. Default is that if nothing is entered, just use this one. So like if I now do this, you can see I didn't pass any parameter, so it's going to use the guest. So if I print, we're gonna have this line is going to print. This is a call of the function, and it's gonna print guest as the name. So I'm getting hello guest, and then here I'm calling the function again, but this time I'm passing Alice. So it's not going to use the guest, it's going to use the Alice. So hello, Alice. Right. So that's another trick that you can use with functions. You give it a default value. And most problems when you are solving them, you need to have a default value. That's the only way you can solve the problem. So how am I going to know what to do? The question will make you think, and then you will know that for me to be able to solve this, I need to add a default value. Okay. I just can't wait to teach you guys more examples, real life examples, so that one we're just going to be using these principles, right? So there is something called callback function. So you can see callback is like after the function has finished, then it will go to the next function. So this one is pretty complicated, but it's only JavaScript pretty much that. I don't know, it's pretty much JavaScript. Maybe TypeScript also would have it, which is a version of JavaScript. So this one callback function, you can see the function here, perform operation, and then it has X and Y as the parameters. And then it also has a whole function, and it's passing those parameters into the function. It's pretty complicated, but it's also very easy, right? The fact that you can do this is a good thing. It allows you to write more code. It allows you to do more with functions. You may never have to do this. Can you look at this small thing here? Can you see that this is a function? It's a straight line function. Very simplified straight line function. Takes a parameter a, b, and then it adds them up. So this perform operation, you give the parameters, these two parameters, and then you pass them to the function. This function. So it's gonna add, it's just a different way of doing things, right? It's just a syntax, a very complicated statement. But all that is doing is that it takes whatever parameters you give to this bigger function, gives it to the smaller function. And then whatever the smaller function has to do, it will do it. Very easy stuff. It's but very nice also to have in code. So we can look at that later on. So function with closure, it's just another one here. So there is a bigger function. Within the bigger function, there is another function called inner function. And then the bigger function is calling the inner function. So this is a very tricky one, but it's another technique. This is high level things you can do with functions. You may never have to do this in your life, but in case you have to do it, then that's it, So I mean, or maybe you're reading somebody's code and they're doing it, you will at least understand it. It's just extremely high level stuff. So there are two functions here. The outer function takes X, and the inner function takes Y. Then they add them up. So let's see what this will do. Let's print it, see what it does. So it's doing nothing. Add 5 is equal to outer function. And then result equals add 5. This is crazy. So see how you do this one. This is one function, bigger function like that. The way you call it and make it work. Let me print the result, console.log. I mean, like I said, this is very advanced. You may never have to do this in your life, but you may be reading some code and they have it there. I guess you won't be scared of it, that's all. So if I print the result here, I'm getting 8. But what is happening is that, first of all, you need to assign. This is very complicated. This outer function, you are giving it the value of 5. So this is 5. And then you're calling this function again, and this time you're giving C. So see this one, this outer function, the first time you are calling it, this 5, I think is gonna go to the Y. And then the second time you are calling this one, and then this 3 is gonna go to the X. So then the inner function will add it and get a 5. And then the outer function will now return this. Very complicated structure, but it is just a syntax. Just a way of writing code. And I think the most important point they want to establish is that for this code to work, this inner function has to finish evaluating and give you the 8. And then whatever, though this function is finished, whatever that you get, the bigger function can return that value, even though this one is done executing. That is what they call closure. It's very complicated. This is one of the most complicated concepts in JavaScript. So we'll get to it, and I would make it very easy once we get there. So this is all there is to functions. You know, it's just a simple declaration of, function, give it a name and parameter, and then do something. And anytime you need to do it, just call it over and over again. So I have questions here that you can practice. Practice questions. And your homework is to just read the scopes. But the scope is also very simple concept. These are questions, right? That I have solved them in functions. So you just have to copy the code and see if you get that. You can change them the way you want. So your homework is to just try to understand the scope. Yeah, the scope is very important. That's the only thing we didn't talk about. But next week I would make sure to talk about it, I think. But just try to read and see if you can understand it. And I have this practice question here. It's a quiz. I know you guys can do it. But this quiz, let me see. Can this work in the browser? I think it will work in the browser. Let me see. I also have the answers over there, so you can try to play with it and see if it works. Okay. Yeah. So that is that. Thank you all for coming. Do you have any questions or no?
No.
Okay. So we'll call it a day. I'll see you all on next week. We'll just begin JavaScript itself, and like I said, we're gonna see some of these concepts again. So that should be fun together. Okay. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Have a good day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Justin, you too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mhm.